we got one of the best finals, definitely since I've been covering the NBA in the last 10 years.
Caruso had to show them all how to open a bottle of champagne. That's how young they are. They don't know how to open bottles of champagne.
It drives me crazy when people already start talking about, is this a dynasty? Well, they're a dynasty of one right now, so a lot can happen, and it's been a long time since anyone's repeated.
If Haliburton does miss the whole of next season, what happens to the Pacers in that time?
You draft for talent, right? Take the best player available, especially if you're a bad team. And Ace Bailey was the best guy available. I'm assuming he's going to play, right? Like the NBA, it kind of works that way.
We got some news coming out of the WNBA. They are expanding to 18 teams over the next 5 years.
It just feels as though everything is going well for women's sport.
Welcome along to This Sporting Planet, the world's view of sport, today coming to you from the UK, America, and Singapore. Now, this is the show that brings together international voices, international sports fans. We're passionate about sport, and we live and work in the regions where these major events that we're talking about are taking place. This week, we are crisscrossing the globe from one of the world's biggest aquatics events right here in Singapore to North America for the NBA Finals.
And basketball's biggest tournament went down to the wire with a series-deciding Game 7. Who doesn't love that? And it was the Oklahoma City Thunder who came out on top. First title in franchise history. That is awesome. We'll find out how they did it and what the celebrations were like in Oklahoma with someone who was there a little later on.
And over 2,500 athletes are heading to Singapore for those World Aquatics Championships from over 200 countries. It's the first time a city in Southeast Asia has hosted this tournament. We'll find out how the build-up is going and who we should be looking out for. That's all coming up on this episode of This Sporting Planet.
Todd Harris from the USA alongside Edward Russell in Singapore and, of course, Natalie Sawyer in the United Kingdom. And there's only one place we can start this episode, guys, and that's with the NBA Finals. The Oklahoma City Thunder played the Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals. And, guys, it went the full distance all the way to Game 7. Of course, it's the best of 7. And it was the Thunder who came out on top. They claimed the NBA championship, winning 103-91 in the deciding game. It's the team's first title since the franchise moved to Oklahoma City from Seattle. That was in 2008. And remember, if you go back in the annals of history of the NBA, Seattle won the NBA title back in 1979. So the folks in Seattle, maybe a little bit hurt that their team has left and now they've gone on to win a title. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but we wanted to hear what the reaction has been like in the great state of Oklahoma. And we dropped a message to sports reporter and anchor at KOCO 5 News in Oklahoma, Hannah Hoover, and she sent us this reply.
Hey Todd, Natalie, and Edward. We just wrapped up a show here, so I thought I'd hop on your show, say hello as well. Talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, because that's all we talk about around here, at least for the last week or really the last couple of months. But it's hard to believe that just a week ago, OKC won an NBA title for the first time ever in franchise history. It means everything to this team. It means everything to this city, because this was a team that had 68 wins, who was at the top of the league, but there was still that underdog mentality of they're young and can they do it and can they sustain it, and they did. And so we all just kind of shook our heads in disbelief, because it felt so surreal when the trophy was presented. It was just electric inside of the Paycom, because that's how OKC, they do things. It is loud and it is rocking at the Paycom Center, and I didn't hear anything like it all season long, but it was so fun to watch the expressions of these players on the team, because they really are, what you see is what you get. They are the same person on the podium as they are walking throughout the building, and just so humble. So it always is encouraging to me and fun to watch a team who is just so real and classy get a win and go all the way. The parade was electric as well. My favorite part was seeing the players jump off the buses and let the fans touch the trophy. They really had a ton of fan engagement, and that was really special because, like I said, this city loves their team. And what does that mean for the future? Well, it means they're keeping a lot of players moving forward, and maybe there will be a dynasty right here in OKC. Thanks for having me on, guys. Hopefully I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
And our thanks to Hannah Hoover, KOCO News in Oklahoma. Guys, your thoughts? Did you catch it? Edward, we'll start with you. What did you think? I know you love your NBA. Unfortunately, your team did not make it to the finals, but that's okay. It was compelling nonetheless. It went all 7. You can't ask for much more.
You can't. No surprise who I was cheering for. The team that didn't knock out the Knicks, OKC. But yeah, on the subject of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA, I love how, by the way, when the American commentators can't pronounce names, they just abbreviate them or just give initials. Like Giannis. We're just going to call him Giannis. I don't care his surname. But Shai, 26 years old. I mean, what an incredible run that was. He ended the final series averaging 30.3 points, 3,172 total points in the regular season and playoffs combined. That's the 9th most in a season, most since Michael Jordan 30 years ago. Only the 15th player in NBA history to win the MVP and an NBA championship in the same season, the first since Steph Curry back in 2015. But look, I know a lot of his points came from free throws. I've been reading all the kind of like internet criticism about the fact that, hey, a lot of those points came from refereeing decisions and then free throws. But I think two things really stood out for me on Shai. First of all, his balance and his body control. I think there was one moment in the finals when it looked like he was falling over, his knee hit the ground, and yet he still managed to find a way to stay on his feet and hit the shot. Not many in the league have that kind of balance. And the second thing, I think, is not just balance in terms of his body, but balance in terms of how he approaches the game as well. In game 5, he was in supreme scoring form. I think OKC were down 4 with about 3 minutes or so remaining, and he turned it around 7 straight points, really to get the result in the end. And then in game 7, look, he did well, but he didn't get as many points, his own personal points of scoring as perhaps he was used to. But then he changed his game altogether, and he decided to play the playmaker, and he set up his teammates instead, and that ultimately led them to winning game 7. So he seems like a pretty humble dude as well. I don't know if you have a bit more insight, Todd, as to what he's like as a person, but I do feel like this is just the first of many, many accolades, both personal and team, to come his way.
Nat, how about you?
Do you know what I love most about this is that, one, as you rightly pointed out, going to the final game of a series just goes to show how nip and tuck this was, how close it was. And the beauty of it going to a final game is, wow, you just can't call it, can you, when it goes to a 7th game? I love it. We're so used to sports over here in the UK and in Europe that a lot of it is done and dusted in one game. But 7, you can be the king of the court in one game and then you can be the villain in the next. I mean, I just love the drama that it all brought. And talking of SGA, as you're all referring to him, and Jalen Williams as well. I mean, what a duo they are, the dynamic duo that they are. I saw an interview that he did afterwards where he was talking about being humble and how, that you will have moments of doubt, even though you're an elite player, but you've just got to refocus every game and know that there will be tough times, but just remember how you got here, why you got here. And he used LeBron James as a great example where Bron had in the past said that sometimes he likes to watch videos of himself, the good and the bad, just to kind of remind him of himself, really. And that's exactly what Jalen Williams was saying that he was doing too, that we had to go through the bad times, watch bad games, but also watch the good so that we remembered how we got to where we got to.
Yeah, and I think Ed brings up a good point when he was talking about balance of SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is the team has such balance. And, Oklahoma City, you flash back 6-7 years ago, they were terrible. I mean, one of the worst teams in the league. And this team has been on a slow burn, the way they built it. So a lot of credit to their front office for their stockpiling draft picks. They made some savvy trades. You think about this team. At one point, this team had Paul George, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. They're all gone, and now they win a title. So to me, that says someone's very smart in the front office. They've done a great job, and they built balance. And what I wanted to refer to about what Edward said was, when SGA is not the main focus, and I think Indiana did a great job of limiting him to having amazing nights of going off for, 30 and 30 or whatever, big points. The rest of the team stepped up. So it's not just a one-man band team. OKC is really built for the long haul. Now, it drives me crazy when people already start talking about, is this a dynasty? Well, they're a dynasty of one right now. So a lot can happen, and it's been a long time since anyone's repeated. So I just think in the world of the NBA, Ed, there's still hope for your Knicks, but I just think to go back to back in this day and age with salary cap restrictions and player empowerment where players could just jump and move it here, it's really hard to keep the band together and do it year after year.
Yeah, well, Knicks need a coach first, that's for sure. But as a neutral, I don't know, are you a neutral actually, Todd? Have you actually told us who you support?
I hate to say this, but I am a Portland Trailblazer diehard. We haven't had a good year since back in '77. And that brings up a good point. I didn't want to get on this rant, but I feel like this title belongs to the Seattle Supersonics. I remember when they were bought by their owner, and he said, we're not moving the team. And within a year, oh yeah, we are moving the team. Better offer in Oklahoma City, and now Seattle's been without an NBA team for so long. So I digress. Back to Natalie. Go ahead.
No, Todd, I was going to ask you then, just for those who might not know the geography, Seattle to Oklahoma, how far is that?
It's a long distance. That's half the country. And being a Portland guy, Seattle was always an arch rival, the Pacific Northwest region, so the whole West Coast. But it's just, I think Seattle needs a team, and I'm sure they're going to get a team in Vegas eventually, because everything eventually ends up in Vegas. But I mean, happy for Oklahoma City. I'm happy for that state. I have a son that's a doctor in Oklahoma, so they're all happy. It's good times to be in Oklahoma. But I got to think the people in Seattle are thinking, whoa. This is the roots.
Well, this is what I was going to ask. Would there still be Seattle Supersonics fans who will still be celebrating the success of this Thunder team? Or are they just... It's a bit like over here, we've got the MK Dons and we've got AFC Wimbledon. You know, originally it was AFC Wimbledon, and then they were bought out and moved to Stadium MK in the Milton Keynes. But then AFC Wimbledon came again, and they have the original fans who stuck with them. But some will have moved with the MK Dons. And I just wondered if that's the same, even though geography is a bit difficult.
Yeah, I don't think I can speak for all the folks in the fine Emerald City, but I will say they were very bitter when the team left, especially when they took the team and Kevin Durant, their prize pick. But I think now enough time has passed, and there's talk that Seattle will get an NBA team when expansion comes around again. How soon that will be, I don't know. But that team is such a loyal fan base of basketball that it would be crazy not to put team back in there. But I did like the idea, and I saw how excited Natalie got about the playoffs and it going 7 games. Can you imagine the Premier League had the playoffs and the 2 top teams, Arsenal and Man City, went at it for a best of 7?
I like how you named Arsenal. I
threw that in there for you.
One of the 2 best teams. Very nice. No, but going back to my point, because I was going to say, as a neutral and as a Trailblazers fan, definitely you had no stake in the final whatsoever. How saddened were you by the fact that once Haliburton went off, it kind of failed to be a contest anymore?
Yeah, I mean, he was such a great story. Here's a guy that was on the Olympic team for the U.S. team back in Paris and barely saw the court. And a lot of people said, and there was some poll that went around, I don't even want to name it because I think it's silly, that he was the most overrated player. And he came out throughout the playoffs to the Knicks' detriment and showed people just how talented he is. And I don't know if he stays healthy if they win, but I think it's a little more competitive game. I still think Oklahoma City was the best team in the league. They deserve the win, and I think the best team win. I don't think Indiana lost it. I think Oklahoma City won that title.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think many even believe that the Pacers would get that far. I mean, in the Eastern Conference, it was supposed to be Boston or the Cavaliers who would top it. But yeah, Tyrese Haliburton, as much as I hate him, as much as I hate the fact that he did that Reggie Miller choke celebration after getting the Knicks out just towards the end of that buzzer, like he really just took every game by the scruff of its neck, didn't he? He was more than just their leader. He was their commander-in-chief. He was their figurehead. I think his postseason saw 4 shots at the buzzer that either won games or sent them into overtime. And you talk about one-player teams, and you talk about how hard it is to keep teams together. If Haliburton does miss the whole of next season, I mean, what happens to the Pacers in that time? Are they going to be able to have another finals crack when he comes back in, say, 26, 27? How hard is it going to be to keep that core group together?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that's the problem with today's NBA is there's so much player empowerment. And not necessarily a problem, but it's a new school of thinking. If this was the Chicago Bulls in the 90s, they're coming back, they're going to run it back together again. And the trophy ceremonies, there was always 2-peat, 3-peat, we'll win multiple titles. Now it just seems to be more of a, hey, let's pause, let's enjoy this moment. We might not get back here again, because you look at the last, 4 or 5 years, there have not been repeats in the NBA. And also, the great question is, what is going on with these Achilles tendon injuries? Yeah. Tyrese Haliburton, Damian Lillard, Jason Tate. I mean, is this the new, I guess it's the equivalent in Major League Baseball, the Tommy John surgery, but that's a very, very serious injury. It used to be the ACL tear was the worst, and now it seems to be the Achilles, because they're saying he's going to probably miss the entirety of next season.
And you even saw it pop, didn't you? It was it was awful in that game. And I did read some of his teammates afterwards saying that it did affect them, which you can kind of imagine, teammates, your mates, your friends at the end of the day. And it's understandable that an injury like that, some of you might just get affected by it. And I'm not saying, like, at the end of the day, the Pacers should have won the series overall, but I can just imagine when you lose someone of that importance and that significance, that it just lays heavy on a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Adam Silver is kind of saying that they're going to do an investigation into what has brought about all these Achilles injuries, because I mean, he was saying that actually the workload hasn't really increased that much, and he thinks maybe these guys are just doing too much work in the gym. Whereas in the olden days, they have a bit of rest and the muscles can at least recuperate a little bit. They're just going too hard. There's also an injured player exception rule. Is that right, Todd? That basically says if they can prove that they won't have a player for the entirety of a season, they're able to sign a free agent for half of that absent player's fee.
Yeah, and there can be some what they call mid-level exceptions there. So, and I think that's fair play, because if you've invested so much money, when you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars into a key piece of your team, and he goes down in play, I think that can sink a team for years, if not longer. And so I think Tyrese Haliburton is that kind of player to the Indiana Pacers, and I would like to see that happen. But, I think the season, personally, I love more basketball, but I think it's a little long. I would love to see them cut it back to 75 and then go back to the playoffs. It used to be the first round of the playoffs was the best 3 out of 5. And so it was a little shorter. So games weren't going 7 rounds, 7 games potential of 21 games and get into the finals. So these guys could be playing close to over 100 games. It makes it a little tougher. And if you go back to 75, then you can eliminate maybe a few of the back-to-backs. And that's what a lot of players say are the hardest, are the back-to-back games. You're on the road in New York. The next night you're in Philly. And then you're maybe playing DC or Boston. So it makes it a little tougher. But you talk to the older guys in the league, they didn't have chartered flights. They didn't have, the things that they have today. So the technology is a little bit different. But I don't know. There's always a good debate there.
Here's a question for you as well, Todd. And Ed, you probably can answer this as well. Again, if I'm kind of comparing it to Premier League teams, what is the stature of these two sides that reach this NBA Finals? Who can we compare them to in the Premier League, for example?
I'll take a crack at this first, and then I'll let Edward finish it off. This is what I love, is I'm a small market guy. Portland is a small market team. It's not New York. It's not Boston. It's not LA. It's a small market. So for me, it's awesome. And if I'm Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, I got to be happy about this, because I'm saying, hey, look, small market teams can win a title here, as opposed to the Premier League, where when was the last time a team out of the Big Six even got a sniff? I mean, you'd have to go back to Leicester or something like
Leicester
that.
City,
Leicester City. But mostly it's those top 6 teams. So I'm pulling for Burnley to win it next year, but we'll see how that plays out. But I think it's a great story, and I love to see the small market teams win. Does that attract big name free agents that want to go play in Oklahoma City or want to go play in Indianapolis or Portland? Probably not, because they can do better on advertising and off-court revenues in a Boston, and New York, and an LA. Which, by the way, you guys saw the headlines, LA Lakers, $10 billion.
Yes.
That's their sale price. And Ed told me he didn't have money for the tube the other day. He was sitting on that $10 billion.
That's a good point, Todd, about actually where do players want to live. I mean, in England, people make fun of the fact, no one wants to live in Manchester because it rains all the time. No one wants to live in Stoke or whatever it is. But England's quite a small country. So even if you do live in the Midlands, you can still head into London for the weekend or whatever it is. But in the US, you're going to be stuck out in Indiana or something. You're pretty isolated.
Yeah, it's a smaller town. And I mean, if you're someone that comes from, I don't say a big city, but you come from an area, a bigger city growing up, that's what you're used to. And, we just saw it in the NBA draft, Ace Bailey, kid that played his ball at Rutgers in New Jersey. And he told a couple teams, or allegedly told at least one team, do not draft me. You have a top pick, do not draft me. Well, the Utah Jazz, if it was them, they didn't listen. Danny Ainge said, we're drafting you because you're the best player available. And I was just literally watching video of him getting off the plane in Salt Lake City, and he said all the right things. I'm blessed to be here. The mountains are magnificent. I'm really excited to get going and go to work. So, I think there's beauty in everywhere. You can name me a terrible city here and there, but there's a beautiful spot. So I think you can find happiness there. But if you're a guy of LeBron James stature, you're going to go to the biggest market. I mean, I can't imagine a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James or a Luka Doncic playing in Charlotte or Portland or Sacramento. It's just, I guess they belong on a bigger stage, and I think the league wants them on a bigger stage.
But every player in this Thunder team, they're under contract, aren't they, for next year? So they're not going to be broken up just yet unless some big trade happens.
Yeah, and that's what's going on right now. After the draft, the open season on free agents is starting, and so there's going to see a lot of movement. I think a lot of it, as of this recording, is going to hinge on what happens with Giannis Antetokounmpo, because Kevin Durant has already left Phoenix, and he's gone to one of his desired destinations. He's basically told them where he'll be traded to, and he's at Houston. So now Houston becomes, they're in the Western Conference. They will be facing off with OKC, so they just got a whole lot better, and they've got a ton of young talent as well. Well, the dust had barely settled on the NBA Finals before attention was already turning to next season. Who's going to run it back? Can OKC do back-to-back? Of course, they will have the league MVP and SGA. And the NBA draft takes place shortly thereafter the finals, and that's where all the top talent comes through, where teams can retool. And of course, Dallas taking the #1 pick in Cooper Flagg out of Duke University. So we turned our attention to someone who was in the know. That, of course, being Dave Dufour. He is the NBA daily host for The Athletic, and he's been taking us through some of the biggest stories from the last couple of weeks.
No one had expectations for this to be a great finals.
Right.
People were setting themselves up to be, not even disappointed. They just set themselves up to not care in the way that they talk. Oh, these teams are boring or what. Look, we got one of the best finals, definitely since I've been covering the NBA in the last 10 years, but in my opinion, ever. It was so unexpected. I think it made new stars, and we got, as sad as it is, and it was devastatingly sad to watch him get injured, but we also got a great all-time what if with this series. Tyrese Haliburton straining his calf early on. Do they just close it out? Like, do the Pacers win it in 6?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what I start thinking. And then, he's hurt. He has this amazing start to Game 7, and then goes down. And, I don't know. I'm going to think about this one for a long time. It's a good question, though.
A couple of things I could do without as a basketball fan. I could have done without them showing Tyrese Haliburton's injury over and over. And I know as a network person, all that, that's the drama stuff. It's, you know what? Don't, just once is enough.
I thought
think
we
of it
had
like Joe Theismann. When his leg snaps, we don't need to see that. Just let it go.
I felt like growing up, there was like this gentleman's agreement where if a guy gets hurt, you pan away if you can. Not show it over and over and over again, especially to basketball fans who we are educated on the Achilles tendon. We know what it looks like.
Yeah.
When it happens. It is such an obvious injury. Obviously now the NBA, I'm not going to call it an epidemic because, it's an acute injury, but there is, because of the style of play. These guys, there's too many games. The games are probably too long. International play, they'll play 40-minute games. NBA's 48.
Quarters,
And just the style of play in the NBA, it's above the rim. It's all over the court. It is 94 by 50 feet. It is a ridiculous sport for the human body, and this is why we're seeing this.
Cooper Flagg, he was always going to be the prohibitive favorite to go #1, and he does. He goes to Dallas, but there was some great action after him. The first 3 picks seemed like they were pretty much locked in, and then I think the big turn, the big surprise was when Utah takes Ace Bailey at 5, and all of a sudden Utah, as you look at their body of work in the draft through 2 rounds, they look fantastic of the pieces they picked up.
Yeah, listen, if the Ace Bailey thing works out, there's been a lot of hand-wringing about, did he show up to Utah or whatever. I'm assuming he's going to play, right? Like the NBA, it kind of works that way. You draft for talent, right? Take the best player available, especially if you're a bad team. And Ace Bailey was the best guy available. Danny Ainge not being scared to take him, I think is in line with what we've seen with Danny Ainge as an executive in his career. And you try to make it work. But the other thing is, like, the NBA is a business. If it doesn't work, fine. They'll move him. He's still a valuable trade asset no matter what. That's the thing about this draft, I think, for Utah, is that they got a few guys that have value. And they haven't had that on their roster.
Help me understand what my Portland Trailblazers did, taking Coward, who I was like, this kid out of Washington State, he's fantastic, and then trading him away.
So basically, the way that the NBA does these trades, it makes it seem like they like Portland's drafting Coward. The truth is that trade was already agreed to. So basically, they're making the selection, but it's fake. This is why you see guys. There is no photo from Luka Doncic's draft year with him in a Mavs hat. He's wearing a Hawks hat, and which is silly. This is something that has come up every single year,
kind of done,
right?
Yeah,
but it's confusing. Also, think about being a casual fan of the NBA. You tune in. Oh, hey, this is my guy. I loved him in college. Oh, he got drafted by Portland. Cool. I'm gonna follow his career. And then you go to tune in. It's like, what? He's in Memphis.
For the NBA fans around the world and in the States, what's next on the NBA calendar? We've got the NBA Finals are over, the draft now. What's next on the NBA calendar where you can get your basketball fix?
Well, we got free agency kicking off actually today, and that'll go on for the next few weeks. Although a lot of the deals, again, NBA free agency kind of boring now. A lot of extensions, a lot of kicking the can down the road.
Summer League's coming up.
Summer League is coming up,
around the country. There's 2. I think one in Vegas. There's one in Salt Lake City. I think there's one.
And one in Sacramento, California Classic. I don't know how I just jumped right over Summer League. I'll be there in less than 2 weeks. I don't know. Maybe I just shut it out in my mind. That's when all the rookies will debut. So we're gonna get. I think we're getting Dylan Harper versus Ace Bailey. I think on opening night, and Cooper Flag facing off against Bronny James Jr.
How
the
good is that going to
matchup
be?
everyone has waited to see. I'll say this: Bronny James got better.
Yeah.
Over the course of the season last year. And I'll tell you, Todd, if people will pay attention, I think he's going to become a decent NBA player.
And as always, my thanks to Dave Dufour taking time out of his busy schedule, the NBA writer for The Athletic. And as always, you can watch my full chat with him over on the Sporting Planet YouTube channel. All right, guys. So we've heard from an expert. We've talked a little bit about the playoffs, the run of the OKC Thunder. Ed, I guess I'll go to you first. What do you think the state of the NBA is right now? Do you think they're in a good place right now, or is there any reason to panic?
I definitely think there are a lot of eyeballs on them, that's for sure. I mean, I was just at the NBA Rising Stars Invitational over the weekend. I was hosting that. A real pleasure to host for the NBA. And I got to say, when the NBA come to town, oh boy, did they come to town. They put the NBA branding everywhere across the stadium, that's for sure. They had a nice shiny trophy, and they even brought some stars with them. Actually, I met you guys recently, so you know that I'm not the shortest guy in the world. But boy, oh boy, when I was standing next to some of these guys, there was 3-time NBA All-Star Domantas Sabonis from the Kings, 2.08 meters. Even Lauren Jackson, female basketball legend, 2-time WNBA champion, she's 1.96. Good thing is, though, Yao Ming was here earlier on. He wasn't there on the day that I was there because he's 2.29 meters, which is anyway. But my neck,
feet. Yeah,
I got home and I needed a neck rub because having to crane it the entire time speaking to these guys was very tough. But no, it was the league's first regional high school basketball tournament. It features boys and girls teams from 11 countries across Asia Pacific, and you could tell their love for basketball, their love for the NBA. In the end, Japan won the girls' tournament, Korea won the boys' one. And no surprise, really, because I think those teams, those countries are particularly strong, not just in basketball, but all sports, whether it's basketball, whether it's baseball, whether it's football. I think the only thing missing, actually, when we talk about NBA growth elsewhere in the world is a big name Asian player. Like Shohei Ohtani is for baseball. There hasn't really been one in basketball I can't think of since Jeremy Lin and Lin Sanity. Although on the subject of the draft, Todd, there was a Chinese player who got drafted 16th overall by your team, the Trailblazers, Young
And the thing is,
Hansen.
they didn't draft him initially. They drafted the guy who wanted in the draft, and then they traded him, and then they got Young Hansen. So he's already in Portland, so Rip City. I hope he can deliver it. But he's young. He just turned 20 years of age.
Yeah.
7 feet tall, though. You can't teach height. Ed, you're a strong 6'1", though. I'd put you at a shooting guard any day.
Thank you very much. And I love the fact that his name is Hansen, but he's just become Hansen when he moves to America.
Yes,
So.
exactly. I was just going to ask Nat, in the UK, the NBA seems to be a big draw, and the London Lions are the team in the city that kind of gets all the attention, and they're reporting now they're going to go back to Eurobasket. They're going to play in the FIBA Euro Cup. So is the NBA or is basketball getting any traction, or is it still footy?
Well, listen, are you talking about footy or soccer footy? What are you talking
Soccer
about?
footy, yeah.
Listen, you know it what it's over here. It's all about football. It's all about the Premier League, EFL, etc., etc. But I promise you, like we talked many moons ago on one of our podcasts, like American football, the NFL's massive here, and that's the same for the NBA. We have the odd game that comes over. I've been to the O2. I've watched the NBA play over here. It's growing, and I work with people that are obsessed with the NBA to the point where I'm like, how do you have time to be obsessed with this of all the hours that you're put in with work and then having to watch it all? It is definitely growing, it has to be said, and why not? I think Europe is a market they're going to want to desperately get into more and more, like we're seeing with the baseball. I mean, they're coming over, aren't they? A lot more too. So they just suddenly thought, hey, those NFL guys knew what they were doing. Let's copy what they're doing. But I want to ask you, Todd, you mentioned it earlier on. I know we've touched on the draft, but this stockpiling of picks that you mentioned that the Thunder have, how's this all come about?
Well, this has been done over several years, and so you got to give credit to their front office, as I said before, and they've had a couple of great guys, Sam Presti and a few people come through there that have really been the architects of this thing. And when you trade away big talent, so you've got a team like an LA or New York or Boston, and they are a win now kind of franchise. They're not in a rebuild ever. And they need someone as they get close to the trade deadline. They're going to pick up someone like a Russell Westbrook or a Paul George, and they'll pay a lot of money. Or they'll say, we'll take him off your hands and his contract because we're a big market. We have the money, and we'll give you our first-round draft pick next year. We're that confident that he can deliver a title to us now. Well, they did that a couple of times. As I mentioned, the litany of talent that have gone through OKC with Harden, with Kevin Durant, with Westbrook, with Paul George. So there's like, yes, thank you, we'll take that. Yes, we stink, we know. Yes, thank you, we'll take your fresh draft. Yes, stink, we know. And then over the course of the last 2 years, yes, we'll take an SGA. Yes, we'll get someone else. Yes, we'll draft a young kid here. And they have built a team basically from the ground up, and they've done a great job, and they've added some complementary players like an Alex Caruso and some others. And so they have basically built this team the way they want it, and from the ground up, and they've done a masterful job. So I think that what that says to the rest of the NBA, it's not just about money. Of course, you can go out and pay $50 million for someone. Are they a hired gun, though? I mean, Kevin Durant's on, I think, his sixth team now with Houston. So he's just bouncing from team to team that he thinks are contenders. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, I'll just demand a trade and I'll move on. So I think OKC's doing it the right way. And if I'm Commissioner Silver, I've got to be pretty happy with what I'm seeing.
I really like the fact as well, it's a young team. So, who knows what they can go on to do. I know you don't want to talk about Dynasty, however we say it. But what I also loved, the celebrations in the locker room afterwards. Did you see how Caruso had to show them all how to open a bottle of champagne? That's how young they are. They don't know how to open bottles of champagne.
I think they better start getting used to it.
Yeah, that's true, Edward. They might take lessons on that. And hold on, this Sporting Planet breaking news. So we'll go to the glasses for this one. We got some news coming out of the WNBA. They are expanding to 18 teams over the next 5 years, with Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia also joining Portland and Toronto. They're getting new teams. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert says the demand for women's basketball has never been higher. I think, Edward, you could chime in as well, but Natalie, I think the investment in women's sports, whether it be soccer, football, basketball right now, tennis and golf, I don't think we've ever seen it this high.
No, I would totally agree with you. Listen, we just got to get on board with it. We should have been on board with this years ago, to be fair. We missed out. But now it just feels as though everything is going well for women's sport. If I can compare it to the WSL here in England, so that's the Women's Super League in football, they're going to be expanding to 14 teams for the 26-27 season, which will mean that 2 will come up from the WSL 2 will go down. Then they're also going to have a promotion and relegation playoff to decide that final place. So yeah, the demand clearly is there. We want more of it, and the investment funding is there as well, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's great that I think these traditionally male-dominated sports have realized, A, that they need to expand to the women's side of things, and also sports that were very American-centric, like we talk about baseball and basketball, have realized they need to expand across the countries, across the continents as well. And just on that subject, October 2025, the Nets against the Phoenix Suns live in Macau. So we'll see. Well, you know what? It's not too far away from here. Asia's quite a big place, so it's not on my doorstep. But yeah, it's not too far. But then again, right, we're talking about Adam Silver, we're talking about these investigations into overplaying and injuries that come from that. They're traveling to Macau for one game, so they better have a lot of legroom, I guess.
Edward, you traveled from Singapore to New York City to see Madison Square Garden, your Knicks place. Surely you can make it to Macau.
And I traveled from Singapore to London to meet the This Sporting Planet team as well.
There you go.
Right, now before we move on, I want to mention 2 things from the Little Red Dot here in Singapore. First of all, congratulations to Shannon Tan, who won the German Masters this weekend. It's her second ladies European Tour title. And our good friend and colleague Colette Wong interviewed Shannon a couple of weeks ago for the Women's Sports Special. So if you do want to catch that, you can listen to it or watch it on our YouTube channel. And additionally, coming to Singapore, the World Aquatics Championships. It's all kicking off 11th of July. That runs through to the 3rd of August. Then they have the Masters event following from the 26th of July to the 22nd of August. It's a big deal. It's the first time a city in Southeast Asia has hosted the championships. So we are very, very excited about that. In fact, these championships are the World Aquatics' largest main event. It keeps growing every year. Last year in Doha, there were 199 nations represented. Apparently this time there's going to be 209. So we're talking over 2,500 athletes across 3 venues, one in Sentosa, which is this small little island off the south coast of Singapore, one at our temporary car park built swimming pool, which is called the World Aquatics Championships Arena, and one at the main aquatics center. But all of the world's best athletes from the pools, from the diving pools, from the water polo pools are all going to be coming here in Singapore. Any athletes that you guys are looking out for from your particular regions?
Plenty. Look, if I start, if you don't mind, Todd, I'm going to take you
Please.
back to Paris, and you know who dominated the pool in Paris.
Oh, yeah.
When it came to those Olympic Games, very much one of the poster boys for France, Leon Marchand. We've all got to look out for him. 4 goals at those Paris Games. He's also had 5 wins at World Championships in 2022 and 2023. World record holder, isn't he, in the 400 individual medley as well, and has broken countless Olympic records. So clearly, you've got to look out for him and see what he can do. And if you're talking from a Great Britain perspective, loads and loads of big names to look out for. In particular, you've got Tom Dean, James Guy, Duncan Scott. But one name missing, sadly, will be Adam Peaty. He won't be there as he continues to take that break from sport to focus on his sort of mental health issues. But loads of people to look out for.
And I think with the USA, I mean, everything starts and finishes with Katie Ledecky. She is the queen of the pool.
Yes.
And how long does she want to go? How many more medals does she want to collect? Sadly, the World Championships and the Olympics, that's when swimming really comes to the forefront of attention here because it comes at such a busy time in the summer where you've got things like the Tour de France and you've got everything gearing up for college and the NFL season. You got the Major League Baseball All-Star break coming up. So it's a busy time. It's a crowded calendar. But anytime Katie Ledecky gets in the pool, it's always a big story. I just saw her. It's a great thing if you jump on YouTube. She gave the commencement address at her alma mater, Stanford. And of course, she compared a lot of things in life to what's it like in being in a race and being behind, or what's it like being out in a long race, 5,000 meters or whatever. And she's so smart beyond her years. She's just one of my favorite athletes to cover first and foremost, and just such a talent. So I think we'll see how she does at Worlds, obviously, and then the big focus will be on her in Los Angeles 2 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, in terms of the 2 swimmers I was most excited to see, it was Leon Marchand and Katie Ledecky. Not every country has announced the team that they're bringing to Singapore, and most countries will be bringing a mix of kind of more experienced athletes, the one we're used to seeing at the Olympics and the World Championships, and some who are going to have a good start here and get some good experience on the world stage. So it's going to be a mixture of old and young. We're waiting to see which other countries say who they will bring. We haven't actually heard. We have heard who the UK is bringing. We've heard who the US is bringing. We haven't heard who China's bringing, but I would assume that they will bring Zhanle, who's the Olympic champion, the current world record holder of the 100 meters free. I say current world record holder. I mean, at the Olympics, he absolutely killed that world record. I think he beat it by almost a whole second, didn't he? So really excited to see him, and it's just going to be a fantastic event. And yeah, enjoyable for everyone in this kind of the part of the world, because we rarely get these big events coming our way.
Yeah,
And
something
I'd be
different.
remiss if we didn't mention the Aussies for Kate Allman. We got to mention the Aussies because they always bring a good team as well.
That is it for this episode. Make sure to subscribe to the show via your favorite podcast provider so you never miss out on an episode. And do make sure to leave a comment as well and a review. We can even bring you video versions of us on Spotify. How about that? Tune into that if you so wish. And you can also watch the show on YouTube as ever. And we'd love for you to get involved in the discussion. So do leave comments. Let us know what you think on everything that we've just discussed in this podcast.
Yeah, if you do head to the YouTube channel as well, you can hear an exclusive chat that Suhail Chandok had with former England captain Sir Andrew Strauss during one of the side's most successful periods. Of course, England in the midst of that test series with India at the moment. So an Indian interviewing an Englishman would be very interesting indeed in that context. They were chatting about the future of franchise cricket, the current England versus India series, and of course, paddle, which dominates both their lives from what I understand as well. You will not be able to watch that anywhere else, so make sure you head to the This Sporting Planet YouTube channel to watch it in its entirety.
And we'll be back on Wednesday, the 9th of July. We'll be previewing the Open at Royal Port Rush, where we'll be speaking to someone who has not only played the course, but has also finished tied for 3rd at golf's original championship. So you won't want to miss that. So we look forward to speaking with you, hearing from you, and seeing you. Until then, for Natalie, Edward, and myself, and the rest of this Sporting Planet team, we'll see you next time.